Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. I'm your host, Amy Van Meel, and I'm here to inspire and teach entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs how to create a business without miring in the overwhelm. Today, I'm really excited to be with you here. We're going to talk about living your dream, creating your 5-star life. Well, hey, good morning. I hope you are doing well today, whatever time of day it is for you. For me, it's morning. And if you were listening to last week's episode where I talked about time, then you'll know that the mornings are my most productive time. So we are right in the beauty belt of my most productive time, which is why I always say good morning when I start the podcast. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. Hello, and thank you for joining me. So, today's topic is something that's really close to my heart, and it's something that I actually had to learn and grow through as well. The idea of living your dream, creating your 5-star life. Now, in a moment, I'm going to dig into it a little bit, and I want to share some reading that I've been doing and a little bit of a reframe in terms of abundance for you. But I just want to check in real quick, see how you're doing. It is becoming full on spring. I shouldn't even say it's not becoming, it is full on spring out here. I was out puddling around in the garden a little bit yesterday. Every year, so I'm Dutch originally, and every year I attempt to grow tulips. And every year, the local rabbits tend to take out most of them. So I swear, this is going to be the year I'm going to get those tulips growing. To heck with those rabbits. I really want to see my garden grow. So anyway, gardening is I would not call it my strong suit, but I try every year and I see some measure of success. We'll see. We'll keep going on that. So we're talking today about living your dream and the idea of creating your 5-star life. Now, I want to share with you an experience that I had a few years ago, specifically around a 5-star experience. Now, we had the unique opportunity to take a crystal cruise, which is a 5-star cruise in Europe a few years ago. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I was so grateful to be able to go. And we paired it off. It was a 10-day cruise. And my guy and I ended up spending 4 weeks total in Europe. We spent a week after our cruise in Dubrovnik, Croatia. And then we spent a week in the Netherlands with my family doing some fun things there. So we arrived a few days early. If you're traveling from North America to Europe, I always recommend having a few days to adjust to the time frame. And our cruise left from Vienna, Austria. So you have a specific time to be able to board the ship. And Crystal Cruises, if you're not familiar with them, is, from my understanding, one of the top cruise lines in the world. Like it's super luxe. It's really gorgeous. In my life, I think I'd had one other 5-star experience, and this was beyond that experience. So we get on the ship. First thing you do, you check in. It's like craziness. There's 150 people all arriving around the same time with their luggage. You know, it's a little bit of insanity. And part of the experience of being on the cruise was that we could take advantage of the spa. So this is one of the very few cruise ships on the river that has a full service spa. And I'm thinking it's a 10-day cruise. I better get my appointments in. Otherwise, all these 150 people on the ship are going to take up those appointments. So we get ourselves booked in, we get ourselves into the room, things have settled down, it's quiet around the front desk, and I go up to ask about booking a spa appointment because I couldn't find everything that I had seen basically said, like, go to the front desk to book your appointment. So I went to the front desk. I had a terrible experience. It was really quite awful. And I have to admit, it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had with front desk staff. That was the only service of the ship that I was really disappointed with. The rest of the ship was top notch. We had an amazing experience all the way throughout, but the front desk was consistently a bad experience. And this was my first time. Now, let me tell you, I did not grow up with 5-star cruises. I did not grow up with the idea of a 5-star life. the messages that I had growing up were, we don't have enough money. Money doesn't grow on trees. If you want to be successful, you have to work hard. Everything was really what I see now, framed around a mindset of lack. So to find myself on a 5-star cruise, to say the least, was an enormous shock to this lack mindset that I have been programmed with since the moment of my inception, I suppose. So we get on the ship, like I said, I go up to the front desk to book these spa appointments, and the experience was terrible. I ended up back in the room 5 minutes later, sobbing my eyes out. And my guy was like, "What happened?" I was moment ago, I was all excited. I was ready to do this. And here I was absolutely like destroyed. I was so upset. And I said to him, I remember saying to him, "I don't belong here. I am so out of my element here. I don't belong here." And they know it. So, when I talk about living your dream and creating your 5-star life, I want you to know it's a process to get there. And the truth is that I would say the biggest, most intensive part of that process is the fact that you're likely going to have to reframe some beliefs. You're likely going to have to reprogram some of the stuff that's running in the background. Now, I've been working on that like steadily the last few months, and I had the most fascinating conversation this morning with my guy where I was telling him about the latest book I'm reading. I'm always talking about the book I'm reading. And I said, this book is really fantastic. So I'm reading The Science of Getting Rich by, I believe it's Wallace D. Wattles, something like that. I keep wanting to say William, but it's not William. Anyway, it's The Science of Getting Rich. And he's always like, okay, what is that about? And so I was telling him a little bit about it, and he immediately dove into, well, that might have been true then. Let me back up. So the publishing date for the book says 2012, but the writing seemed a little bit different. So I was saying last night that I was reading it, I'm like, I kind of felt like I was being brainwashed. So I actually did a little bit of research on the author, and it turns out he passed away in 1911. So this book was written way before my time, which explains the way that it's written. So it allowed me to go, okay, he's not brainwashing me, but I understand now the style of writing, and now I can be open again to the ideas. So I mentioned this to my guy this morning, and he starts in with, well, that might have worked then, but the world is very different now. And, it's not just like we are running out of things and this isn't working and blah, blah, blah. And all I could hear was lack, lack, lack. And I finally said, babe, you are living in a lack mindset. There is more than enough to go around. Now, I agree in the sense that we cannot keep going in the way we have been going. We do need to change what's happening, our practices in the world, the way that we live to a certain point, absolutely. But to look at the world from a sense of lack and saying, there isn't enough, maybe in 1911 or 1902 when he was writing it, sure, then there was enough resources for everybody to get rich, but that's not possible now. And I said, no, it's even more possible now if you can imagine it. I said, if you look at, like, nature is abundant, inherent in its coding. So the book I was reading before, I believe it was in the Abundance Code. I think I talked about that one last week. Julianne Cairns talks about the sun and how the sun is always abundant. It is never in lack. The sun does not say, I'll shine on you, but not on you. It shines everywhere the same. Now, if it's cloudy, obviously that's different, but that's not the sun changing. The sun is always shining the same. It gives abundantly without ever expecting anything in return. It would be kind of funny if you thought if we were like sending gifts back to the sun, but it gives. The sun always comes. It is a constant in our life. It's like gravity. We don't even think about it because we assume, we act as if it's always going to be there. And I said to him, look, nature is coded to be abundant. When a flower grows, it creates seeds. Go with me here. It's probably not entirely horticulturally correct, but let's go with this. So a flower grows, it creates seeds. Those seeds are intended to go out and grow even more flowers. So let's say one flower produced 10 seeds. Even if only 5 of those seeds actually took root, one flower has now created 5. And that's what I mean by the idea that nature is inherently coded to be abundant. And when we look at it from a point of lack, when we look at it as if, the resources are running out, we're selling everything short. Now, I absolutely believe that as humans, we can be smarter about how we use resources. I do not think that we need to be just, in a sense, wasting resources like we may have been doing for the last few years. But to look at it and say, well, there's not enough, that I'm just like, hold up, that's not true. And I said to him, look, I have been living in a lack mindset my whole life, and I'm done. I refuse to go back to that mindset. From here on in, I'm looking for abundance, and I am creating my life to be abundant. The hell with that lack mindset. I want bigger things. So in a few moments, we're going to dive into the 5-star life and creating your 5-star life. But I want to share this with you because, this was in the book that I mentioned, The Science of Getting Rich. And it totally turned on its head my thoughts around gratitude and the idea of acting as if. Now, I'm going to read some excerpts for you, and I want you to keep them in mind as we continue to move forward. So I believe his name is Wallace. Let's go with Wallace. So Wallace says, there is a law of gratitude, and it is absolutely necessary that you should observe the law if you are to get the results you seek. The law of gratitude is the natural principle that action and reaction are always equal and in opposite directions. The grateful outreaching of your mind in thankful praise to the supreme intelligence, which is source or universe or God, is a liberation or expenditure of force. And if your gratitude is strong and constant, the reaction in formless substance will be strong and continuous. The movement of the things you want will be always toward you. Now I love this. This one section is going to be a little bit long, but let me tell you, these 2 paragraphs blew my mind. You cannot exercise much power without gratitude, for it is gratitude that keeps you connected with power. But the value of gratitude does not consist solely in getting you more blessings in the future. Without gratitude, you cannot long keep from dissatisfied thought regarding things as they are. The moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction upon things as they are, you begin to lose ground. You fix attention upon the common, the ordinary, the poor, the squalid, and the mean, and your mind takes the form of these things. Then you will transmit these forms or mental images to the formless or source. And the common, the poor, the squalid, and the mean will come to you. To permit your mind to dwell upon the inferior is to become inferior and to surround yourself with inferior things. Now here's where it gets good. On the other hand, to fix your attention on the best is to surround yourself with the best and to become the best. The creative power within us makes us into the image of that to which we give our attention. We are of thinking substance too, and thinking substance always takes the form of that which it thinks about. The grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. Therefore, it tends to become the best. It takes the form or the character of the best and will receive the best. So I read that excerpt this morning, or I read the book this morning, but that excerpt that I just read you, I read this morning, and I got to tell you, it blew my mind. I have heard, I'm sure you have heard, the idea of gratitude, that you need to practice gratitude, that gratitude brings more abundance into your life. And there was a part of me that always struggled with the idea of, practicing gratitude because I want to have more. In a way that always felt a little bit selfish to me. And even though, they say practice gratitude selflessly, how do you do that when you're told to practice gratitude because it will bring you even more? I mean, if that's the programming, then your mind can only say, well, I'm going to practice this gratitude because the intention of doing so means that I'll have more coming into my life, right? What I love about how Wallace talks about it in the book is that he says, yes, it's important to practice gratitude because it keeps you in harmony with the frequency of source. It keeps you in harmony with the frequency of receiving, of abundance. But to practice it purely from the point of this will get me more of what I want is not really the idea, which I think we knew all along. What I love is where he says, when you aren't focused on gratitude, your mind turns to the things you're not happy with. And in doing so, now your thought, your intention, and your energy is focusing on the things that you don't like. And what happens? We create more of that. So what I love is it's a tiny reframe, but its impact, I think it's enormous, that we're not looking at gratitude from a point of like, okay, I need to practice gratitude because I want more things, but gratitude is a state of being. So if we're constantly, in the mind of gratitude in the sense of like, being thankful, and he goes on to say somewhere like you don't need to be sitting in there like a monk the whole time, but basically that you train your thought to focus on the abundant things in your life, the good things in your life, and to be grateful for those. So it's simple things. And when I start looking at how I move through the day now compared to what I used to do, I notice it's the small changes. So when I have my cup of coffee in the morning is like my favorite thing. So when I have my cup of coffee in the morning, every morning, I am, even if I'm not thinking, I'm so grateful for my coffee machine. When I make my coffee, I'm so happy to be making it with this machine. So I have a Breville, call it cappuccino machine. It has like the espresso shot and the steamer. And I got it years ago and I love it. It is a source of absolute joy. That might sound silly because it's just a coffee machine, but it really is. I never, ever, ever look at my coffee machine from a point of lack. It is always in my mind a place of abundance. I'm always happy to use it. And I love my cup of coffee in the morning, which is partly why maybe I record my podcast in the morning and why my morning is so good because I'm hyped up on coffee. But I start looking at all the other ways that I am thinking from a point of gratitude rather than a point of lack in my life. So now that I'm bringing attention to it, I'm watching a little bit more closely for it. But for example, yesterday I'm like, we are so lucky to have just clean, fresh water right out of the tap. That's such an amazing thing. I mean, there's definitely lots of places in the world that don't have that. That tiny frame of thought is a moment in gratitude. I'm so happy that we have clean, fresh water. When I get in the shower in the morning, I'm so happy that I can stand under a nice hot stream of water and feel clean when I get out. When I go to the gym, I'm so happy that my body is capable and able to do these things that I'm asking of it. And even if it hurts, even if I'm like, oh my God, who said that we were going to do all this today, which is usually me, then I'm happy that my body can do it. And I'm grateful for that. Underneath all of that messaging is this idea of gratitude. All right. I'm going to carry on off of gratitude, but I really wanted to bring that out because as we're talking about living your dream and creating that 5-star life, you're only going to be able to create abundance in your life from a place of abundance. Remember, it's the whole, like what you focus on grows, or like attracts like. When you move into the frequency of gratitude, into the frequency of abundance, you're going to naturally bring the rest of those things in. So I want you to keep that in mind as we talk about your 5-star life. Now, talking about our 5-star life, I do want to say everybody's version of this is different. I know that, society tells us it's, the big house, it's being famous, it's having all the fancy cars, it's traveling all over the world. In a sense, I would say, the 5-star life, the way society positions it, is living in excess. So it's beyond abundance into excess. You're not specifically enjoying it, you're simply using it. And those aren't the same. So when I talk about creating your 5-star life, it's super individual. Like, you need to decide, what does your best life look like? And it doesn't have to be the same. Your best life might look like, living in a yurt half the year. That sounds atrocious to me, but if that's what you want to do, then I totally support it. Maybe your 5-star life looks like being able to have the designer clothes, or to be able to go to the best restaurants, or, whatever. But it's your choice, whatever your 5-star life is. I know plenty of people who, I would say, their version of their best life is simply being able to spend time with their loved ones, being able to sit quietly and enjoy nature, or enjoy the sounds of the day. Like, it totally depends. Everybody's 5-star is different. So for me, I'll give you an example for me. So I'm still fleshing this out, but this is where I've gotten to so far. So my 5-star life looks like having all the fun and interesting experiences that I want. It's living with a mountain view outside of my window. It's skiing whenever I want. You all know I'm a huge skier, so this totally lines up with what I want to create in my life, right? It's having a full, long, and loving relationship with my guy. It's having a sporty car. I've talked about my Subaru WRX before. You know I love it. It's flying first class and taking 5-star cruises and feeling like I belong. It's having abundant time with those I love. I have a niece and nephew that I adore, and I don't get to spend as much time with them right now as I would like to. So my 5-star life looks like being able to spend time with them in abundance, that I can play with them and get to know them. They're becoming these fantastic little people. I want to be there with them. And it's my healthy and able body. So these are ideas from my 5-star life. So it's good for you to think about, what do you actually want? And like I said, forget about what society tells you that you should want. Forget what, I can't even think of any of the names right now, but you know who I'm talking about. The glitzy people, the people who are flaunting their success everywhere. This idea that, in order to be successful, you got to have the flashiest car. You need to live in these certain places of the world. You need to be taking this certain level of vacation. It doesn't matter if that's their version of an abundant life, fantastic. Do you know who we don't hear from? The people whose version of an abundant life is being connected to nature, is living lightly on the earth, is, just appreciating everything that's there, because it's not flashy. It's not big. It's, for some people, maybe a small way of living. But it isn't. If that's what makes you happy, if that's what you aspire to, that is your biggest and best version of yourself. And so you need to be able to clarify so you can go out there and grab it. Does that make sense? Okay, so once you've clarified what your 5-star life is going to look like, you might be wondering, well, Amy, how do I go get it? It is, in fact, the $1 million question. So obviously the first step is you got to clarify what you want. I mean, you're never going to be able to pull in what you want unless you know what that is. If you were to go to a car dealership and say, well, I want a new car, and they say, great, what do you want in it? And you're like, well, I don't know. but I want a new car, you're going to be there for a while. And I can guarantee you the salesperson's going to be a little bit annoyed because it's like, oh my goodness, could you give me like even a list of what you don't want will help clarify what you want. So the first part of being able to actually have your 5-star life is to clarify what that looks like. We just talked about it. Now, I would say the second part is to begin opening your mind through learning. I've talked about in just about every podcast episode I've done so far, books that I'm reading. And I've shared with you some of the key learnings that I've had in those books or profound revelations that I've had in those books. So you need to be continually opening your mind. And that can look like reading. I think there's some fantastic learning and information that you can get from books. And you can, like I said before, you can do it through your library. I have an e-reader. So I shouldn't say an e-reader. I have an app that is part of our local library. And so I just can download ebooks in the app. It doesn't cost me a thing. I can read it anywhere I am. It's fantastic. So if you're beginning opening your mind, when you're looking for learning, maybe it's through podcasts like this one, or it's through watching different kinds of films or movies. I watched a couple weeks ago this fascinating documentary on Einstein. I don't know where it came from. Like it dropped into my mind. I'm like, I want something that's got more juice to it. I'm going to share this with you right now. The past few years have been a struggle for me personally. And I would say the end of the summer last year, I had regressed into almost a hopeless state, a point of which I'm like, I don't know anymore. Like every time I try to get myself out of this quicksand, I feel like I just end up sliding further back in. And I had pretty much given up hope of ever having a change. Now, I think I mentioned before that, a phone call from a friend really turned my life around. And the person that you're listening to today is a result of that call and the collateral action that happened afterwards. But my point is, in the time when I was really in the deep, in the time that I couldn't see the light for the life of me, I also wasn't doing anything to learn or expand my mind and my knowledge. Now, so that was a period of that was a fairly significant chunk of time. And now since I've started to make the shift and I've started to read and learn, I said to my friend, I feel like I'm this starving person. I just am inhaling knowledge. I'm inhaling this learning. I almost can't get enough. Like I just want to take it all in. And to me, that's my mind and my soul saying, "Oh my gosh, this is the source of our energy. This is the source of what we need to create. So give me more, please." Like I swear that it's like a sponge that just keeps sucking that information in. You need to be open in your learning. And if you want something different than you have today, you're probably going to have to try something different than you've been doing, right? You know this, you've heard it. I'm just telling you again. So we talked about starting by clarifying what you want. Then you're going to begin opening your mind through learning. And then finally, you got to act as if. And I'm going to be honest with you, this was a struggle for me. I'm like, I don't understand how to act as if. So I'm going to go back to the book that Mr. Waddles wrote for us because there's a fantastic excerpt in there that all of a sudden made it all make sense to me. Okay, so here's what our lovely author has to say about acting as if. And he doesn't call it acting as if. He just talks about it being in the moment of receiving, which is somewhat the same. So here's what he has to say. Once you have clearly formed your vision, the whole matter turns on receiving. When you have formed it, it is well to make an oral statement addressing the Supreme in gratitude. Then, from that moment on, you must, in mind, receive what you ask for. Live in the new house, wear the fine clothes, ride in the automobile, go on the journey, and confidently plan for greater journeys. Think and speak of all the things you have asked for in terms of actual present ownership. That's it. That's acting as if. It was a shift for me because again, I heard lots of people say, you need to understand what you want and then you need to start moving in that direction and then you need to act as if. And I'm like, well, if I don't understand. If I act as if I'm already, bringing in the abundant money that I want to, aren't I going to be even more broke? Like that's where it broke down in my mind. And what he's saying here is you're acting as if in your mind. You're talking about it in the present. So I have mentioned before that I'm bringing something big out in a few weeks. I'm super excited. And everything, the way that I talk about it, the way that I think about it, I am talking and thinking about as if it's already here. So I'm not saying when or one day or I hope it will be this. I'm saying I'm having this result. And this is what it feels like right now to have this result. I'm being a little bit vague here, but anyway, the idea is that I'm not thinking about, okay, one day when I have this, or I hope that this is what's going to be. I'm preparing myself that this is what it's going to be. And I'm like, whoo. And this is a really fantastic shift for me to be able to start thinking, okay, this is the result that I have set my mind to having. When that result is achieved, what's it going to look like for me? What are the steps following? So I now know that the result is going to be X, and I also know what my steps are going to be following that. So I'm already, in the sense, in my mind, I am living as if it's already here. So this future, this coming event that I am preparing for, that in my mind I'm acting as if it's already here, I am so excited for it. And let me tell you, at the time that this comes out, it will be 2 weeks from coming out to you. I'm beyond excited. So I am going to introduce what I'm bringing out to you guys in a masterclass. I'm super excited. I'm just putting the final touches on that masterclass. And in that masterclass, one of the things that I'm going to talk with you about is the true formula for success. Now, this is something that, man, I wish that I had known like eons ago. I only just realized what this success formula was literally like about 6 weeks ago. It finally all came together and I'm like, like I swear it was like fireworks went off in my brain. That's what the success formula is. And let me tell you, it is not effort equals success. So, to learn what the true formula for success is, listen very carefully next week because I'm going to tell you the details of how you can join me for this masterclass. I'm so excited. And like I said, just stay tuned. I can hardly wait to bring it out to you. So let's back to the 5-star life. In order to create that 5-star life, like I said, you need to decide, what do you actually want? What is your version of a 5-star life? So I don't need a big house. I want a house that when I look out the window, I see the mountains. That is my ideal. That is my best version. It's not going to be huge because I always think, who's going to clean it all? But that's in my best life. One of the other things that's in my 5-star life is the ability to do some amazing vacations. It's having a fun car to drive. And it doesn't have to be, a Porsche or an Audi or a Maserati or anything like that. I want a car that is fun to drive, that's safe on the road, but like handles like crazy and it's just sporty as heck. To be fair, I already kind of have that car, so I'm already living on my way into my abundant life. I already have a part of it. Then I want you to think about, what are you doing to bring that into reality? So your 5-star life is going to require some growth out of you. I know this might not be fun to hear, but the person you are right now is probably not the person you will need to be when you are in that 5-star life. Now, that is not to say that you are not good enough. That is not what I'm saying here, so I want you to hear that very clearly. What I am saying is that you are going to need to grow. You're going to need to expand your thinking, and very likely your mindset will need to shift and reframe in some ways. Now, if you want to know how to do that specifically around money, I highly recommend you read The Abundance Code and The Science of Getting Rich. Those two books together have been blowing my mind, and they are all about creating abundance in the idea of like actual money in your life. So, like I said, we need to do some reading. Are you doing coaching? Are you reframing some of your beliefs? The Abundance Code, fantastic. She actually gives you, I think, 7 practical applications for you to reframe beliefs. So, a real quick note, the idea that you need to work hard to earn money or to work hard to be profitable, that is a limiting belief that has been programmed into all of us, most of us, pretty much from the time of birth. But that limiting belief is limiting our progress. It's limiting our success. So you need to be able to understand what those beliefs are and then reframe them so you can actually launch to your success. And that's why I said the person that you are today is very likely not the person who's going to be stepping into this highly abundant 5-star life. You're going to have to do some work. And I would definitely recommend, if you aren't already, start a meditation practice. And I think I've talked about it a little bit before. Meditation does not have to be this idea of like sitting cross-legged and saying Om all the way through. If that works for you, fantastic. That doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for me. And I'll be honest, I struggled a long time trying to bring meditation into my life because I was doing all these versions that just weren't working for me. And I'm like, okay, I understand the benefits, but man, it needs to apply to my life. It needs to be something that I can actually do and not fall asleep every time or feel frustrated because I'm not accomplishing anything. So definitely get a meditation practice in place. There's some really fantastic guided meditations as well. You can find them on YouTube. Just start doing them. Make a point of adding it into your day. Then you're going to believe almost to the point of craziness that your 5-star life is already yours. And when I say craziness, like you are thinking about it as if it's already here. You are talking about it like it is your current reality. When I say craziness, I mean people are they might look at you if you're living in like a tiny apartment and in your 5-star life, you're living in a 5,000 square foot house. They might be like, are you crazy? Like, that's not what your life looks like. And you can say, you know what? You're right. The physical reality that I'm living in right now maybe is not representative of my 5-star life, but the 5-star life that I'm going for already exists in my mind and it's coming, baby. So there's a bit of a lag between creating the vision in your mind and setting it up to source and having it actually appear in your reality. I know there's often, they talk about the idea of like the elephant. If you visualized having an elephant and there was no time lag, then you'd all of a sudden have an elephant in your room, right? It's a bit far-fetched, but you know what I mean. And then, like I said, you're acting as if. Think and speak of all the things you asked for in terms of actual present ownership. So no one days, no if I get this or when. It's here now. You're thinking about it as if it's already existing. This is your current reality. That's where your mind goes. All right. So I hope that you found this fantastic. Let me scratch that. I don't hope you found this fantastic. I'm trusting that you found this to be a really fantastic episode. I would love if you're listening to it on my website, daretobegin.net, please leave a comment below the episode. If you're listening to it on iTunes, I gotta be honest, I'm not on iTunes, so I don't know, but I think you can comment there. I would love that. Please leave a review. That would be fantastic. I so enjoy bringing these out to you, and I'm excited. I have one more episode in the queue that I'm super excited to bring out to you. I'll be bringing episodes every week to you, but I already know what the next one is, and I'm stoked, man. So stay tuned. Like I said, I am super excited to bring out this masterclass to you guys very soon. And in that masterclass, I'm going to be giving you the actual true formula for success. It may just blow your mind. With that, I wish you an amazing rest of the day. I sincerely trust that you are going to start actioning these tips. You're going to start putting these into practice. If you're looking for actionable things and you're on the process of launching your business, grab the download. So there's the 10 Steps to Launch Business Starter Kit. If you haven't grabbed it, get your ass over there. It's daretobegin.net/10 steps, 10 steps, 10 steps. Grab the download. I think you'll find it super useful. And if you don't find it super useful, please tell me. I'd love to know if you need more or less in some way, shape, or form. But that download is intended to be able to basically take your business from an idea in your mind to a fully realized business. It will exist in the eyes of the world once you complete all 10 steps. All right? So it's a little bit of work, but I know you can do it. Look, getting our dreams, living our big life, stepping into that 5-star reality is not something that you can do sitting on your duff and wishing for it. You gotta take action, right? What is it? I'm trying to think of the energies. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when you start taking action towards your life, the reaction is that life comes to you. That's amazing. But if you're just sitting there wishing for it, hoping for it, wondering why it hasn't arrived yet, well, because you haven't taken any action. The universe doesn't just drop things in your lap. It says, hey, okay, I see that you're making progress. I see this is where you want to go. I now totally understand because you're clear around what you want to have in your life. Okay, I got you. This is what you want. I see you're moving in that direction. Here, let me give it to you. Right? That's really what it's all about. Okay, grab the download, daretobegin.net/10 steps. Meet me on Instagram. If you are on Instagram, I'm on Instagram. Well, I should say all the time. I want to say all the time, but the last few weeks I've been really focused on my work, so I've been on there a little bit less. But I do jump on Instagram live every week, and I share even more tips and tricks in the live that I don't necessarily share on the podcast, and I don't necessarily share anywhere else. So you can find me at I Dare to Begin. That's my Instagram handle. And if you find me and you decide to follow me, great, but send me a quick message and just say, hey, Amy, I listened to the podcast and I heard your call out and I'm excited to meet you here. I would love to hear from you. Okay, with that, it looks like there are rain clouds rolling in. I'm super excited. I'm kind of a dork. I get excited about rain. So I'm going to sign off the podcast, go watch the rest of the clouds roll in, have a bite to eat, and get really excited for meeting you guys here again the same time, same place next week. Until then, have a fantastic and wholly abundant week. Bye for now.